Hi, I'm just going to do some quick reflections on what's happening in Yammer at the moment. Before I do that, I'm just going to show you where I am. So I'm here in my office. You can see there's my office door, my bookcase, my printer, stuff on my desk. You can see that, you probably can't. My notice board, something of my view out onto the First Street car park. This is a picture of my youngest daughter, Catherine. This is my eldest daughter, Alex, I don't know if you can see that, graduating from York. Now, I don't know if that helps at all, but I just kind of think it's interesting when we're considering whether multimedia has an impact, whether it's useful to kind of see my embodied experience of teaching on this module and how and where I am when I'm doing it. So that's the first thing. The second thing is thinking about multimedia and video in particular as a way to respond to the discussion that's currently happening within Yammer. So I began to write it, and it occurred to me that just as Francesca had used some audio, that it might be useful actually to use some video, because my response at the moment is rather complicated and it might be easier to do that and express it through this kind of medium than it is by sort of typing it out. So what happened this morning? Well, I went into Yammer feeling some of the guilt that Mark talks about, of kind of thinking, oh gosh, I really ought to do something about my distance students and Yammer and making sure that everything's working fine, and I had in mind a particular journal article that I was going to post. But what I found when I got there, to my delight, was that stuff was really happening without me needing to lead it in that way. So it seems to me that a number of you are stepping forward and leading the discussion in a particular direction. Kath's lovely question is a great example of that, where she's doing exactly what a teacher would do, which is to raise a question and see what comes back, and then of course some really interesting things came back. So some of those are things that I might have thought of, like maybe the reference to Priest et al. And also Paloff and Pratt, were the sorts of things that I might have chipped in with. But Mark's introduction of discourse analysis I thought really fascinating, because that's not one of the things that I'd initially thought of as introducing, but of course highly relevant and got some interesting things to contribute to our consideration of social networking as a learning platform. So all of that was really fascinating and great to find that rich discussion was unfolding. But it did leave me wondering about my role as the tutor and what I ought to do next. So I now have something of a dilemma. Do I carry on and chip in with my journal article that was going to lead you off in another direction, or do I just get out of the way, recognising that others are actually leading this discussion in new and interesting directions that I hadn't thought of myself? And on balance, because this is a master's level module, I think the latter is the best way to go. That whilst ever you are having interesting, relevant, theorised discussions about Yammer, that really my job is just to chip in and contribute my view, rather than feeling that I need to lead, because of course if I'm leading, I'm getting in the way of you leading. So that's what I'm thinking I'm going to do. I'm also thinking that for those who are participating less frequently, that maybe that's what my job is as well, to try to draw in others who aren't currently participating as much as others. Recognising of course that people may well contribute to different levels, recognising that conversation that we had about lurking and the potential legitimacy of lurking as a learning experience, but nonetheless offering support for anybody who's finding it difficult to join in for whatever reasons, technical or emotional or academic. And so that's what I'm thinking my role is moving forward as a tutor, given what is happening anyway in the environment. But I'd be really interested in any responses that any of you have about that choice and about the dilemmas that you're presented with as a tutor when you're working in this very new environment, because the expectations are not as clear cut as they would be in a classroom, where there's a very clear expectation that whilst the tutor might set student-centred activities, that in the main the learning unfolds according to a kind of underpinning plan that the tutor sets, but that what's happening here is that that plan is kind of being overwritten by the interesting, relevant, novel perspectives that are coming in from you as students. So it's interesting to reflect on that shift in tutor role, and I wondered what your views on all of that might be.